were live.
Live. Good morning. This is the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs. And this is our Friday, February 20 meeting. We have 4 members of the 5-member committee present, and 5th member is the chair, and she will be online with us while she's driving this morning. So we should all be here once we're able to get her. But since the time has started, let's go ahead. And the first item on the agenda is a review of S 328, which is an act relating to housing and common interest communities. And our witnesses this morning.
Is that 238?
328. We had 238 also, but this is 328.
Oh my God.
An act relating to housing and common interest communities. And our witnesses are not here. We're going to go over in the sections 2, 3, and 4 with a walkthrough. Cameron Wood was in earlier this morning for a few minutes, so he came back. He's not back yet. He's going to go through those sections with us. And then Director of the Housing and Homeless Alliance of Vermont is going to be up with us for approximately 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. Is there any concern?
I'm trying to make an agenda. Do we have anything more for a vote today?
With one thing we may have to vote is the workers' comp bill. It's S-173. And my understanding is, even though Chair is traveling, she is able to vote by Zoom and want to pass it through. That's on a note, but I said you certainly hold it.
No.
If necessary.
Chad said he'll be right there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm seeking a copy of, yep.
Okay.
So many housing bills in a pile.
You have one housing bill, everything else.
I have a good one. It's in another committee.
Okay. Cameron, would you introduce yourself and lead off on the sections that you're going to bring us up to date on?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. Good morning. For the record, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel. I believe this morning we're looking at 328 as introduced. Just doing a quick, kind of walkthrough and reminder refresh on a few of these sections. I believe it's 2, 4, and 5. I'm not going to share my screen if that's okay, because I think be pretty succinct on what these sections do. If you look at section 2, this is about tax credits for affordable housing. And what this language is going to do on page 3, towards the bottom, oops, page 3, wow, excuse me, page 5. Page 5, at the bottom, the change is going to be in line 17. And what this is doing.
Your screen.
Yes, I can. Yes. 1 second.
For common interest communities.
This section is about tax credits. We are going to talk about common interest communities in section 4 and 5, but the first section I was wanted to discuss or asked to discuss was section 2. And that is about tax credits. And
Page 4 it starts.
yes, sir. Yeah, okay, I'm coming into the Zoom.
Yep. And we're still on as introduced.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. So we are on section 2, which is amending tax credits for affordable housing. These are the section which gives the Vermont Housing Finance Agency all their authority to issue tax credits for different programs that they administer. One of those programs is, as you can see here in the sub H, the Down Payment Assistance Program. So this goes all the way back to, it may predate 2016, but for this statutory section, it starts in 2016 where they were given tax credits between 2016 and 2019. Those were then extended from 2020. And they currently are set to expire this fiscal year. And so what this bill proposes to do is extend that for another 5 years. And so it would authorize them to award up to $250,000 for the down payment assistance program through fiscal year 2031. That was as introduced, so I haven't been asked to make any changes to this section at this point. So just a question for you all, whether you want to extend those tax credits for another 5 years.
Okay, I recall a great deal of discussion on this.
I wonder if Chad has something to
Yeah.
say about this section, and
We
This is not a new-
Finished going through each of the piece, last chat about that, we talked about each of the individual sections in terms of this issue.
but there's no new appropriation.
Well, it would be extending their ability to award these credits for another 5 years. So next fiscal year, there wouldn't be an appropriation impacting this fiscal year because they currently have the authority for this fiscal year, but beginning in fiscal year 2027, they would then be able to continue to award those tax credits.
I like the program. I don't know if you wanna, debate the program, but I think $250,000 goes a long way.
I know, I think what we'll do is, let's go through the things so that we understand what they are, and then we'll have Chad here to testify on these particular pieces. And so, we can express our opinions.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to jump to section 4. This is going to be on page 7, the bottom of page 7. So section 4 and 5, this is where you start the sections that are amending common interest communities, typically kind of referred to as homeowners associations, but in statute they're referred to as common interest communities. And so section 4 on page 8, what this section is doing is it's saying that this prohibition in section 5 is going to apply retroactively to common interest communities that are already in existence. So as you can see on page 8, unless it's otherwise accepted, because there are certain HOAs based on size, which are kind of exempted from the Uniform Act, it says that these new sections 3-125 and 3-126, which are the next two sections in the bill, would apply to a common interest community created before January 1, 1999. And so it's kind of a retroactive application. And I will say that there are possible constitutional concerns with applying this retroactively, because these are communities that exist and they are essentially contracts that are in place for these communities where individuals, you've reported the covenants that exist in the HOA and people have purchased those homes. So they've kind of entered into that contractual relationship with those covenants. And so by amending them retroactively, you are impacting the contracts clause of the Constitution. I'd be happy to come talk to you all in more detail about that, at a point where we have a little more time. I want to be respectful of Chad, who's next. So just commenting that you can take that out, in which case these sections would apply prospectively to new common interest communities that are created, or at a point where a common interest community wants to amend their bylaws or their, articles, in which case then it would apply at that point. So it's just a question of, do we want this to apply retroactively or not? And then you get to section 5, which is where you have the new prohibitions. And if you all remember, there are 2 new things in this section. It would require an HOA to allow people to lease their unit. And this is where you get into the detail here is going to be on page 9. So it states that the subsection shall not be interpreted to authorize, the A1 on the page before is where you have any governing document associated with the common interest community. It cannot prohibit, this is lines 18, 19 moving forward, prohibit, unreasonably restrict a unit owner from leasing the individual unit owner's unit for residential purposes. And then when you move to page 9, you have a few conditions on that, where it says that the subsection shall not be interpreted on the subdivision 3 here. The subsection shall not be interpreted to authorize transient occupancy. So just because you're allowed to lease the unit for a residential dwelling, it doesn't mean that you can operate a hotel. Subsection 4 says it doesn't authorize a unit to lease for a short-term rental. So the HOA could still prohibit short-term rentals in this, under this section. And then it says it doesn't apply to a common interest community reserved exclusively for non-residential purposes. So you could have these common interest communities that are for commercial purposes, for example, and in that case, it's not going to authorize somebody to lease, you know, a commercial space for residential dwelling in this case.
And this is where the affordable housing community came in and said, you know, they have kind of a income eligibility restriction they'd like to maintain.
Right. So I was,
Rent those out.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So
Yeah.
I've been asked and obviously I just don't have an amendment drafted up because we haven't got to that point, you know, in the committee process yet. But one thing that has come to my attention that individuals want to ensure is that these sections don't somehow impact or override or, you know, somehow negate the restrictions that affordable housing program put in place. So, you know, if you get state money, either through a tax credit or through some other funding mechanism, it usually comes with some sort of restriction on the housing that's developed. Think VDIP, for example, if you get funding through VDIP, if you all remember that program, you have to lease the unit out to a certain population of individuals, or you have to maintain the unit for a certain period of time, available at fair market rents. And the way that you can go about requiring those conditions is you put in a covenant in, you know, the restriction of the housing itself. And so individuals want to ensure that this change here, which would allow individuals to lease their units, isn't going to somehow override those covenants that are put into place regarding affordable housing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so what I can do is I can just, you know, make sure to craft some language to ensure that this isn't interpreted to do that. It wouldn't override those affordable housing restrictions that are put in place under those programs.
How does this then, in effect, adversely affect owners who purchase the property beforehand who don't want that to happen?
So that's what I meant about that, whether you want to apply this retroactively or not.
Yes.
Right. So if you apply it prospectively, then
Yeah, that's what we did here.
This is retroactive.
currently this would be retroactive. So you,
Yeah, but our intent is to go to look at it from a forward-looking standpoint, correct?
so
As of that, but like it should be.
So two things. You have the retroactive versus prospective piece.
Mhm.
And Senator, to your question, that is a concern where, you know, somebody has entered into purchasing a property under the understanding that it would have these restrictions in place. And to what extent do you want to disrupt that individual's, you know, having gone through that and entered into that arrangement? You could have it just be prospective, in which case any new HOA that comes online wouldn't be able to prohibit this, in which case the person purchasing the property at that point is going to understand, you know, when they enter into that contractual relationship, I'm buying this property, you know, that this may be an authorized use, it's a lease at that point. Separate from that is the affordable housing piece where, you know, my recommendation would be you don't want this language to somehow be interpreted to override those affordable housing covenants in place. You want to keep those. So I would probably draft some language to put in here to specify that this section can't be interpreted to somehow negate those affordable housing covenants that are put in place.
We'll wait here the remainder of the testimony today on these pieces, and then perhaps have a, depending on time, a brief discussion where the committee stands.
Can I ask? So, well, first I'll say, like, if, as you're drafting, I think you should draft it for the portable housing piece. I don't think anybody wants to, upset that apple cart. I don't know why we chose 1999, I guess. I don't know if there's other laws that come into play.
That is when the Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act came into
Okay,
effect.
do we have to use that date?
So there are. You're referring to this
Yeah.
here, right? So the uniform law went into effect at that point in time.
Okay.
And after that point in time, any common interest community had to comply with the Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act provisions. Before that, there is a separate statutory section in
Mhm.
Title 27, which is property,
Mm-hmm.
called the Condominium Ownership Act.
Mm-hmm.
So there are still some of these, HOAs that exist that operate under that language.
Okay.
So that's why the 1999 is there.
Okay, because I may not be understanding this fully. Anything that's retroactive, my concern or intent would be like to this year, but the beginning of the year, so that it isn't, okay, this all takes effect June 30th, and there's a rush to build in
Right.
protections against this. So I don't know if that date could say January 1st, 2026.
Maybe, let me look
Could you
into it.
look into that?
Mhm.
And then we all got an email from the credit union that essentially says there are financing prohibitions from the federal level that were probably introduced with the best of intentions, so that there's not too much investor ownership. It's not just they're not just paying for an investment property. And that is that it has to be 50-50 owner occupied versus rental. I'd be willing to live with that. I think that is a pretty good safeguard. I don't know if we want to draft that language.
Well, somehow, I think you ought to hear from some of the people who might be affected, because there may be issues that individual owners may have that we have not been made aware of. If we're dealing with financial institutions and they don't necessarily always represent the interests of the owners.
Mhm.
And so seeking out some additional testimony, make sure that we have a breadth of opinion, I think would be important.
Do you think since we're getting closer to crossover, I might just suggest we have it drafted,
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a draft, have it drafted to be able to look at it. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
and then have them in,
And then have a discussion and have them in it.
and I'll
Have the discussion.
forward you this. Cameron.
Yes, ma'am. I was gonna say on that piece alone, this kind of, what sounds like a financing underwriting piece. If you don't mind sharing with me, I want to take a look, because I think that may be covered by the subdivision 2
Right,
here.
right.
There is a section in here that says, notwithstanding this, it doesn't impact the authorizations or the restrictions in this
Mhm.
120F3.
Yeah.
And if you're saying, what is that? I pull it up, but I went in and grabbed it on my iPad here. It is that an association can adopt rules that affect the use of or behavior in units that may be used for residential purposes, to restrict the leasing of residential units to the extent those rules are reasonably designed to meet underwriting requirements of institutional lenders that regularly make loans secured by first mortgage of units in common interest communities. So their concern may be covered, but let me take a look at what they've sent and just make sure that is what this section. So. Okay, bringing us back, the second piece of this new section that would go in common interest communities is section 5, which adds this new section 3.125. So you have the leasing of the units, and then the next piece is the family child care home. So similarly, the sub 1 here on the bottom of page 9 would say that, covenants, restrictions, conditions, etc., cannot prohibit, this is lines 20 and 21, prohibit or unreasonably restrict a unit owner from operating a family child care home, as that term is defined within the unit owner's unit. And then there's a few provisions saying they must comply with applicable federal and state laws relating to the regulation of family child care homes. That's kind of in there to ensure that, if there are certain requirements about the operation of the home itself, that they need to comply with those. And then you have subdivision C and D about zoning and land use. Unit owners shall comply with federal, state, and local laws related to zoning requirements, land use, and other covenant conditions and restrictions. And then the section doesn't apply to leasehold common interest communities. Those are the three sections. That's a quick walkthrough in the market.
Leasehold
Let me pull up those, but that-
And can I have the chair or Kira, in case people wanted to know more about the real world problem? I did forward some, a possible witness, family.
Yes.
And I don't know if we've invited them or anything, but I guess it all depends on if people need to understand better why this came about.
Well, we'll be, in terms of the agenda planning
Yeah,
for the next piece to do that, the more information we have, because these are communities that may not be people don't particularly know what they are, what they do,
Right.
what the issues are.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just an anxious former chair, making sure this gets scheduled for next week if we need it, because I think that's our week. I don't know if oh yeah, okay, she's not driving. Hello.
First driving seat, there's Oliver. Morning, everybody. I'm sorry to be not there. I'm not sure we're clear on that person, so that family, so let's get that scheduled. And Cam, I apologize for joining late. Did you include the prospective aspect of the HOA piece and Chris Donnelly's, your work with Chris Donnelly's incorporated here?
Yes, ma'am. I did mention the kind of retroactive / prospective piece, and I mentioned the concerns that have been raised about not wanting to somehow impact current covenants that are in place related to affordable housing.
Right. And Chad, I think will speak to Maura's concerns. Maura has a few concerns about this section as well, and Kiara can maybe print out those concerns. Did you include the addition of the ADUs? I apologize. I just didn't hear if you had included that.
No, ma'am. I have not included that in any new language. I haven't completed an amendment at this point because I was just walking through the current sections as introduced, but I can briefly discuss
Right.
that if you'd like me to.
I think that would be great. Better you to discuss it than me at this point.
I guess what I was looking for, Madam Chair, is are we trying to move this bill by a date certain so that we share what witnesses we want to have lined up?
Absolutely. On Tuesday, we're going to go through the bill section by section. If you have witnesses now, please give them to Kiara. I'm not sure we knew about, I just wasn't clear on the witness you had for the HOAs because we've been trying to find common interest communities.
Email that. You have to
Well,
email.
well, it may have been a while ago and I get a lot of email from you. So I apologize if we
I have a lot of
missed
witnesses.
So, but we also need, just while we're on the subject of witnesses, we also need witnesses for the transit corridors. I've got Charlie Baker identified, and
I would really like our constituent, Bob Clark. I think I forwarded that. I have Bob Clark's, yeah. So I have just been forwarding people for agenda items.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we
Great.
do,
Nicole Connell.
what we do here today is discuss the issue of what witnesses do we need for
Exactly.
particular sections that are not yet
If
clear.
we're trying to finish this on Tuesday, that seems to be a big part of this
I'm
discussion.
going to try to do what that means really, I don't know, Madam Chair, when are you going to be back available?
I'm available now. I just said we're on Tuesday. We're going to walk through every section of the housing bill to see what people are good with, what people still need more information about, and what is good to go. So, for example, I think the VEDA language, I think we're good to go on most of that. There are sections I think most of us are more comfortable with than others. This section is one of our more challenging sections just because it involves an area of law that we don't deal with very often.
We need more
And it
information.
would be great to get it right.
Get some of that this morning in the time that we have left.
I think we have plenty of time. We need to get this bill out March 13th. So we've already spent quite a bit of time on it. We're in good shape, I think. And the HOAs, it would be great to have a couple more witnesses. We got a long email from a common interest community, which I think Kiara had, I think they sent it to all of us. That was my understanding. And we will try and find that person, that spokespersons, because that just came. But we have an input from Maura and Chad, which you're about to hear. We've had input from Chris Donnelly, and trying to represent the Keisha's concern about ADUs and duplexes. I've had Cam begin to draft an amendment that addresses that prospectively.
Damn, okay, I was like, I don't know, damn, okay.
Well,
Well, I thought you, Keisha, I thought you were wanting to make sure HOAs, people could in HOAs build
I love
ADUs.
that. We did
And-
ADU by right, so, yeah, I think it should be included, they shouldn't be exempt from by right.
Cameron, are you, finished your walk?
Yes,
At the point?
Yes.
Well, good. Thank you very much. Then I guess, Chad Simmons would be next on the witness list. And if you could, come up to the table.
So while he's doing that, I guess what we're saying is we should look through the bill and make sure any witnesses
Absolutely.
we need are on for Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Because we just walked through two
Well,
sections.
yeah, but we need to coordinate to do that with the chair, I think,
Right.
on Monday. And that, the question is going to be what her availability is there.
I think
It's available. It's not like I'm not available. Tuesday, we're gonna have witnesses for, we'll be able to build in witnesses
yeah, I mean,
this next week and the week after.
I don't know if that
What
makes
I
sense.
really need from the,
You can't have everybody talking at once. Madam Chair, why don't you go ahead with your commentary?
what I need from all of you on Tuesday, after you've read through the bill and the section summary, which Kara's gonna send to all of you. What I need is what sections you're good with, what you're not good with, and what you would like more information on. Because we're gonna have to begin to make choices on this bill. So for example, the mobile home lot rent, I've asked Cam to pull that because the House is doing a whole mobile home bill. So we can discuss lot rent when it comes over after crossover. So that is now out of the bill, stuff like that.
I get that. I'm concerned, I think we should do that today. I'm not gonna get to these, like, that's how this works this week. We have a discussion today of what we need if we're gonna try and move a bill early
Well,
the next
we
week.
can do that consistent with time. The
Okay,
question is, we have a very full agenda also this morning and with witnesses lined up.
okay.
So whether or not we can get that done or not, we may have to do that offline this afternoon or whatever.
It's hard to look at language over the weekend.
I understand.
Or
but
the witnesses for
What we
For the record, Chad Simmons, Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont. I think I can be pretty brief. The committee has received a couple of memos and has already heard from the Vermont Housing Finance Agency on one of the two sections of the bill. So my hope is to just amplify those requests and concerns and then answer any questions. So the first is section 2 of S 328, which is the state housing tax credit. HHAV is in strong support of this program, which provides down payment assistance for low and moderate income Vermonters moving from a rental property to home ownership. This has been a wildly successful program since it was created. Putting over 2,100 Vermonters into affordable homes through this down payment assistance. It has provided 0% kind of interest, 0% interest down payment assistance for closing costs for Vermonters. And VHFA, one of our members, is kindly asking to extend this program by 5 years and to expand it. I think this is an important second part of the request, is to expand it by $100,000 per fiscal year. So moving from $250,000 per year to $350,000 per year. And what this two-part request will do is give a little bit more time. As constructed, the down payment assistance is part of the Vermont, the state housing tax credit was intended to sunset this year. And as my understanding, VHFA has sold that last credit for the down payment assistance. However, because of rising interest rates over the last number of years and of rising house prices, many Vermonters have not been able to sell their homes that utilize the down payment assistance. So there was not a lot of repayment and funds coming back into the program. So VHFA is asking for another 5 years so that those funds can be replenished. And because of the success and because of the demand, they're requesting an additional $100,000 per year over that period of time. So we strongly support their ask for that program. And I'll stop if there's any questions.
Senator, we have one question. Thank you. So it's advertised as a revolving loan. Correct.
It essentially kind of functions that way. So when someone receives a down payment assistance grant, or I'm sorry, loan, it's a 0% loan. It's kind of essentially a second mortgage. They are able to utilize that to make a down payment and go towards closing costs. And they've ranged anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 over the years. Those then are paid back when the house is sold or they refinance.
Okay. And how many years has this been?
This has been in operation since 2014, I believe.
So my question is,
Yeah.
why does it need a chunk of funding every year? It's really a revolving.
Sure, it's because it hasn't been revolving as much because of the market. The market has.
So in those 10 years, 16 to 12 years, it hasn't paid for itself, like replenished its 250,000 per year.
It has been, but at a slower rate. So the rate that VHFA was expecting to be able to replenish was not as quick as we had
I
hoped.
just wanted to understand kind of the financial
yeah.
40,000 would be what's happening.
It's a good question. But essentially, the market just needs more time to get used to a higher interest rate environment.
How about default rates or anything like that? Any kind of negative aspects which haven't been?
You'd have to ask VHFA on that, but my understanding is those programs see a really good rate of involvement and people staying in their homes. The folks that are these are low and moderate income households who are receiving these benefits, and 15% are from the manufacturing production, 15% are from healthcare. So these are Vermonters who are in need of just that little bit of assistance to afford
And the required repayment is only at the time of sale?
or refinance, correct?
Or refund. Okay.
Yep. You're welcome.
And as you said, this is viewed as a very successful program. How do you define a successful program as you look at this?
Sure, moving people from rental to home ownership, and just that little bit of help assistance allows people to get into that and afford. And these are moderate income households.
You're talking about $250,000, which, given what the state seems to spend, seems like very little. It's $250,000 a year over how many years?
The full tax credit is for 5 years, and then it winds down over those another 5 years. So it's a total of a 10-year arc.
Well, try it over years, but a number of years we've had the programs. Thank you. Anything else that you want to talk about regarding the sections that?
This section, no, that was it. We just want to share our support for this program.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Chad, my understanding from my email with Maura, and I can't see my email, but I would ask that Kiara print out Maura's email that I had assumed had been sent to everybody, but may have been just sent to Kiara and me. Chad, my understanding is that you would be able to speak to the concern Maura had about the HOAs.
Correct. Yes.
I think we've heard about that. We're drafting it, that one.
I can speak, so on section 5, starting on page 8, line 14. The VHFA, as well as has been mentioned earlier, our nonprofit members have shared some concerns of this section. I think there's broad agreement that the intent is good, and this change is a good move forward. However, it's been brought to our attention that there may be some unintended consequences of prohibiting these types of uses in HOAs and condominiums and common lease communities. And specifically, the way it is worded, it would apply to any mortgage deeds or housing subsidy covenants, such as shared equity homeownership, and regulatory and program requirements. So VHFA flagged this for a couple of reasons. The first is it would impact Vermont programs, particularly VHFA programs, as well as some of our nonprofit shared equity programs, which limit the use of state dollars and state funds to ensure folks are using that for their own purposes. So for owner-occupied homes. The second, in which Moore's second page of the memo goes into in more detail, is this would actually have some unintended consequences on our secondary market. So our homes financed through VHFA would need to meet regulatory requirements for Fannie and Freddie Mae to be able to be sold on the secondary market. And if these provisions in this bill were to move forward, that might disrupt their ability to provide mortgages for condominiums and homes in homeowner associations. So VHFA drafted some slight changes to Section 5, which would limit the governing to the prohibition to only the governing documents of HOAs and condominiums. Associations, I'm sorry.
And I don't know, we've not seen those draft changes at the point, have we, Madam Chair?
Kiara's printing them out now. I don't have access to my email at the moment, so I can't remember if Maura emailed them to you all yesterday. But Kiara is printing them out right now. And my question, I guess, for Chad is, does Chris's, because I haven't seen Chris and Pam's work, does the amendment that Chris and Pam worked on, Chris Donnelly, satisfy, or is this an additional change?
I unfortunately have not seen those draft changes yet. So I'd be happy to take a look at it and see if the changes that Chris had worked on would align with VHFA's request. I think VHFA's request is fairly simple in that it just removes some of the language that would apply to governing documents outside of HOAs and condominium associations.
But we don't have that document. What we do have is your email to Mara, Mara's emails to you, Madam Chair, directly, in which
if I could, Madam Chair, it was posted on yesterday's committee page. So for February 19th, that memo.
Right.
I apologize if I'm talking loud right now. I think my I'll try to use my indoor voice.
but we haven't necessarily seen it. The rest of the committee, to the best of my knowledge, has anybody else seen the document?
We got printed the email, not the memo.
The memo was
Yeah,
on
we got-
yesterday.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Print out the memo as well.
I don't,
know.
if someone's drafting it, that's fine with me. I just
We
really,
still have to look at it, and we
Yeah.
only have, I think at this point, we have 5 more minutes for this subject, so we're probably not gonna get through it with a full and complete understanding. But now for the time that we have left, for Chad's testimony, does anyone have any additional questions that we haven't asked at this point?
I would just add, I think it was mentioned earlier that some of the credit unions have chimed in. I would just encourage folks to listen to the credit unions and some of the questions and points that you brought up.
Okay, or anything that you know that they're going to raise with us that you should alert us to at this point?
I reached out to them for the same reasons that Maura and the HFA have brought up in terms of the impact of the secondary market.
And they emailed, and I think, I feel like it's a drafting conversation
Yeah.
right now. Nobody wants to interfere with this.
Yeah,
so
that's correct.
just wanna-
I think that I agree with you on that. Okay, Chad, thank you very, very
Of
much
course,
for
thank you.
coming in and talking to us. Next item that we have on this morning's agenda is Act 173, an act relating to workers' compensation and Vermont Labor Relations Board. We have this scheduled at this point for a vote. Have our drafter here with us this morning. So he's that one. Welcome.
Morning. Sophie Zadati for the Office of Legislative Counsel.
And before we have this scheduled for a vote at this point, however, it does, we spent a fair amount of time looking at this, but at the same time, there's, with the number of bills that we have, the refresher is always important. Does anyone have any concerns or comments about where we are right now on this particular bill? And it's being passed out right now, starting along with summary.
Just a summary of the changes,
Of the changes,
what
yeah.
you reviewed yesterday.
Now, would you like to go over that summary very quickly, Sophie?
Sure. Do you want me to put it up on the,
Yeah, if you could, that would be
yes,
helpful.
hold on, I'm just getting into the.
And we did spend a lot of time on this, a fair amount of time on this. We've got 15 minutes scheduled. Try to finish this up and see if we're ready to take this to a vote.
Computer's feeling the end of the week as well, yeah. Or the coming snowstorm or something.
And a little emergency.
Draft 1.1.
It is draft
2.1.
2.1.
2.1 strike all amendment. So it's done yesterday.
I sent it to you all last night.
I got it.
And again, on the screen is just what I've highlighted is what's changed.
I try to make that a little larger because it's
So that they right.
you can go over the highlighted changes.
Yes. So the one you had yesterday was instances of amendment, so it didn't include section 1. So this now includes section 1, which had from the introduced bill. So this isn't new. This is the vocational rehabilitation changes. And again, these changes are looking at removing the requirement for an initial vocational rehabilitation screening for eligible injured employees. It would allow injured workers to initiate rehabilitation services if the employee fails to do it after the 90 days. And it also seeks to make sure that injured workers are fully informed of their right to access vocational rehabilitation services. So this is, again, has not changed since the bill was introduced. It's just now inserted into here in the form of a strike all amendment. And then in section 2, this is the working group. And this added in that sort of the purpose of the group is to look not just at whether the current vocational rehabilitation system is meeting the needs of eligible injured workers in a timely manner, but also is it doing it in a cost-effective manner. And then there was discussion yesterday about who would appoint the members of the working group, and it was decided to split it between the Speaker of the House and the Committee on Committees. So each of them get to pick one of the representatives on behalf of workers' compensation claimants, one of the representatives on behalf of employers and workers' compensation and insurance carriers as one of the vocational rehabilitation counselors.
So, Rich,
If I could, so in the conversation yesterday, there was mention definitely the pro tem and the speaker assigning members. I thought also the governor was potentially going to pick a member of this group. And I know that there's a number 2 here, but there was, I thought, conversation there were going to be 3. One was the governor, one was the pro tem.
I think the possibility that, because there was just a general discussion around who should appoint, and I think the
Right.
governor was a possibility, but my understanding with this was where the committee landed up, so it's evenly split between the House
I
and the
didn't hear a
Senate.
landing. I'd like to hear this.
I think it was like a evenness question. I don't know that like it was nefarious, and I remember thinking in my
No, I'm not
head, I
saying
don't think
nefarious.
the governor would have a problem not appointing somebody. Just that if we let the House appoint, we usually let the Senate.
No, I get that.
Yeah, but I don't actually
Try to
don't
keep it
have strong.
evenly balanced.
Exactly.
And then the committee would be chaired by the Director of Workers' Compensation and the Department of Labor.
And that is the gubernatorial.
Right.
The department. of course.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there
Makes
was a
sense.
conversation. I didn't hear an end to it, but now I see there's an end.
Is that my recollection?
I mean, it's
right?
not the end. We could still debate it, but I just don't have strong feeling.
Well, I like the Tracy gave. Governor have you.
It's being led by someone from the executive branch, of course, the governor.
And then the final change was just adding in that eighth topic, which was how could vocational rehabilitation services be provided in a way that is more cost effective for the workers' compensation system as a whole. So again, I think there were concerns around the costs of the workers' compensation system. And so as they're looking at the vocational rehabilitation, how can it also be made more cost effective for the system as a whole? So those were the changes.
I'm sure the House will take this up, but I'm just wondering if they conclude that what they should have the screening that we had to make it more cost effective for the worker compensation system, the screening that we're taking out of Title I. But we'll leave that for the House to flesh out.
Well, we have the good vocation rehab services provided in a way that's more cost effective for the compensation systems.
My concern is every time they go to, okay, WCAT rehab services, that carries with it what I understand, very short conversations, much more expensive cost than the insurance screener that might, at least 40% of the time, not directed there. So I just think this work might conclude that they want to reinstate what we're contemplating moving in Section 1. But again, I'm not going to make this a sticking point. I'm fine to move this thing along and have it be debated in the House.
Anybody have any comment on that, or any thought of adding any additional language? Clarify.
No, I did. If I can go back with one step. Where does it say that Director of Workers' Compensation Safety and Care?
So it has meetings at the bottom of page 5. The Director of Workers' Compensation and Safety shall call the first meeting. I kind of assumed that would mean that he was.
Okay.
I
But
guess
they're a
that
member
could
of
be-
the group. That's the important.
Yeah, and then the support for the group would come from the Department of Labor, and then as raised yesterday, the Department of Labor would be providing the reimbursement compensation.
Very good.
If I may, Mr. Chair, that I'm really thrilled that the Department of Labor is working, has taken this on, and so the administration really has a lot of skin in the game on this, obviously. And for Dirk and Kelly to have worked this out is great. And I think these changes are great. I'm glad we incorporated JB's changes, and I think it's in good shape to sail from the Senate to the House. Thank you, Thomas. I agree. I think further conversations obviously going to happen. They'll spend quite a bit of time on it. So, and Michael Marcotte is, it's very keen on balance and on these issues. So I have confidence that this bill will be treated well in the House, but I think it's in pretty good shape now. And I think this will help our workers' comp system be more effective, particularly for these really injured workers, and getting them back into the workforce is really what my main.
Well, one issue, the issue that was raised is whether or not they should first act as chair of the group is sufficiently clear. I guess we could take a look at page 5, line 19, and add to it, the Director of Workers' Compensation and Safety shall act as chair of the working group and call the first meeting of the working group to occur on or before August 14th. Does that add the kind of clarity that some of you were looking for? or not?
I'm ambivalent. I just heard it, but I didn't read it. I didn't find it in the taxes.
I'd like to talk about health insurance. That's my silence that are ambivalent.
All right, so
I'm fine with this.
fine, we'll leave it as is.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And I can buy it on the outside.
Madam Chair?
I'm
Is
good
that
to go.
Okay, then we are apparently ready for a vote.
So we're looking at, S 173, draft 2.1. Strike all, and, first up, Senator Block.
Yes,
So, do we have to vote on the amendment first to accept the draft, the strike all amendment first?
Now
And
it's strike all
then
amendment.
move out the bill as
So first, strike all amendment, Senator Block.
draft 2.1, strike all amendment dated 2/19 at 10:47 a.m. And I vote yes.
Senator Chin. Yeah. Senator Robinson.
Yes.
Senator Weeks, yes. Senator Clarkson.
yes.
Who would love to report this bill?
So I think, okay, do we not now need to vote on the bill?
Yes, we need to
As
vote
a-
on the bill.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so back to the bill, S 173. Again, date, draft 2.1 is the reference, 10:47. Senator Brock,
Yes,
Senator Chin.
Yeah.
Senator Robinson.
Yes.
Senator Weeks, yes. Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
So to Madam Chair's point, being the junior guy, I'm happy to take it because there's bills coming up which, I don't have much expertise on. They're much more significant, so I'm happy to report it, but I may be asking you guys.
Rachel have lots of help.
Should we ask people to interrogate you?
Please don't.
I think you're eminently qualified to report this.
Yeah.
We're listening to it at length.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have and Sophie is there to help, and we're all here. Thank you very much. I think this is terrific.
Thank you, excellent. Next item on today's agenda is at 10 a.m. We have 6 minutes, 7 minutes before 10 a.m. So why don't we take a 7-minute break at this point? Then come back in at 10 o'clock to talk about S 278 cannabis.